Okay, in this video, I'm going to go through some of the features that were included with the Upgrade Kit 1 for the brother Luminaire and LuminaireSolaris machines. This Upgrade Kit 1 came about, I think, September 2019, around last fall. Now we also have an Upgrade Kit number 2. I won't cover that one on this one. It will be probably another video later on. But this one I've just called features what were included with that Upgrade Kit 1. Upgrades are those ones that you will have to get your credit card out or checkbook out. They have lots of extra features, and those ones they have a price tag on them. But then we have updates. Updates are free. Updates are things that both Babylock and Brother they put out occasionally for some of the machines where they may have improved some functionality or then also added some new features. So we have updates and upgrades. On this one, I will touch a little bit on the update also, because in order to put any upgrade in a machine, there's usually an update associated. Only because we have to have some way to put the upgrade in a machine, there's an update involved. But often there are additional features added. And when this Upgrade Kit 1 came out, there were a lot of features that came with the update. So I'm going to go really quickly through some of those updates that were included at the time, and then really spend more time on the upgrade. The Solaris and Luminaire, they both had the same version numbers. This way in August 2019, that is update. These are the free ones that you can download from the website. These updates were at the time called 2.00. But now we have also, I believe currently, this my taping in August 2020, I'm in my machine at version 2.05. Well, there's going to be soon another update available so that we can add the upgrade too. But this one, whenever it came out, these were the extra features that were added. Well, one thing what they did, because this was just a big update, there was even an addendum for the machine's manual. And because we don't have hard copy manuals anymore for these machines, those manuals get updated automatically then during the update. And it explains the features. Of course, these manuals can be also downloaded from the Babylock and Brother website if you want to have a hard copy of it. And then the really actual features. We have had on our machines for many, many years, even some of the fairly basic machines, a resume function on embroidery, which meant that if you were in the middle of embroidery and you had to turn off your machine or there was a power failure, when you turned the machine back on, the machine remembered where you were on that design, as long as you had stitched at least one stitch. Well, this feature is now also available on the IQ Designer My Design Center. So if you were in the middle of working on the design on IQ Designer My Design Center site, that's a digitizer part of the machine, and there's a power failure, or if you turn your machine off, there will be the same kind of a resume function. The only way that will is different from the embroidery side is that like in embroidery, when you turn the machine back on and the machine detects the embroidery unit, it will ask immediately, do you want to resume the previous design? With the IQ MDC, what you have to do is when you select that function from the home page or from the embroidery page, that is when it asks if you want to resume it. So that's the only difference. Then other kind of a really what I love that this feature in there is the reinforcement when stopping embroidery. So in the past, if your thread broke or if your bobbin thread ran out and you had to cut your top thread to put the new bobbin in, well, in that case, that stitching wasn't secured. It was just cut the threads. But now we can do a reinforcement by just touching the reinforcement button on the machine bed. It will stitch 3-4 stitches, and then you can cut the threads. And I will demonstrate that in a machine, that feature. It is really, really handy. So that was nice. That was a feature that we have had available on the multi-needle machines for forever. But then this is now also available after the update. And then we have the guideline with the stitch pattern screen and the fabric projection. We can have them at the same time. Before this update, we could either have the guideline marker to be projected or the stitch pattern. But now with the update, we can have them both at the same time. So that was a great improvement also. And then some other changes that were done on my design center IQ design area is that on those region fields, the default setting for the decorative fields, they used to always have an outline stitch. Now the default is that there's no outline stitch and you can turn it on. Because most times I actually, when I use this function of these decorative fields, I usually always went and remember to turn off the outline stitching. I didn't want to have a stitch going around it. Now it is default is off, so if I want to have it, I will have to turn it on. So that was a really nice feature because most times we want it that way. And then another great improvement was that we can magnify now up to 1600% on my Design Center IQ Designer. We used to have it up to 800. Now we really can have a close look up when you work some precise areas. And really another cool feature, I think there were also great features, but this is the one I love now, is that I can set the machine to have an auto update so that I don't need to download the future software updates, these free updates. I don't need to have those ones anymore downloaded in a memory sticks and send them to the machine. I can have it now automatically, check on if there's an update, and then I can install it. You still have to manually install that one, not manually, but you have to request the installation, but at least you'll get the notification. And I made a separate video about that one. It is in our YouTube channel, so if you want to watch that one, how to do the updates then with the Wi-Fi. And then other one that there were some improvements made on some of those motif stitches that we have in my Design Center IQ Designer, how the mirror image works. It used to kind of mirror image on a different way, so certain patterns just may work now better when they were improved. And I have put the websites on where you can get the updates. And sometimes these change a little bit, so best way would be if you have a Solaris to go to the babylog.com and then under there to find the updates. And then on a Brother, it will be the support brother.com for the Luminaire machine. Sometimes those addresses, they do change, so I won't count that they always work. They were correct at the time of the taping. Well, those were the features that were available on the version 2.00. Well, then on December 2019, another update, a smaller update came out. So I listed some of the functionality, and again, then in, I think it was March, maybe 2020, another update came that was 2.05. So there are smaller updates been since that major one at the 2.00. So on this update, there was some improvements which I listed on this one.
I'm going to just very quickly show some of the items that came with the update, which was not the upgrade, but update 2.00. One first things what I had listed there is that under the help, under the question mark, on the PDF manual, we have now addendum. So this addendum had information about what to update, some of the major features. Of course, this one can be also downloaded when the Babylog or Brother website, which there's the one that I had printed out from the website. So it's just a couple pages of information that update gave us. And then, yes, we got the upgrade. There's an update, the information about that one as well. I just picked up a little single color design, and I have very little thread in a bobbin. So that's just the best way for me to show that one. So I'll start embroidering, and when we get the low bobbin thread alarm, in the past we just had to stop the machine, and then those thread tails were not tied. But now we have a reinforcement function. Here we got the message, the bobbin thread is almost empty. And we also now have instructions. In the past, all we was getting just that it's almost empty. Well, now it tells that if I want to use the reinforcement, that will then show single stitches repeatedly, tie on the stitching. And then also they'll set to use the move frame key to move the embroidery carriage so that the embroidery frame can be removed or installed. So I'm gonna go ahead and touch the reinforcement button, and that is that look like a bullseye. If I just touched it, it will stitch in place few stitches and it's secured. And then like the next step was use the frame move key, which is the one on the bottom right corner. And that was again gets an alarm that your hoop's gonna move. That's okay, and you can hear it's gonna cut the threads for me. That allows me now to take the hoop off the machine. And instructions tell remove the embroidery frame and replace the bobbin. And then after you've done that one, then that's okay to move the embroidery carriage to its previous position. Because I can take it out. And sure enough, there wasn't much left there. I purposely put just a little bit thread on that bobbin. Let me put the full bobbin thread. Put that one back. You still have to take the hoop off the machine because whenever it moves in the right position, and especially larger hoop, you wouldn't be able to get anyways. So I'm gonna touch OK. And now it's back on the position where I was finishing. They tell instructions that you don't have to go back because you are exactly the same position. I often may go back like 1 or 2 stitches still. Just kind of make sure that there was no gap. And then I want to secure in the beginning on this also. So I'm going to just touch that reinforcement. So it will tack it down. And now it's secured also the beginning. And then I get it started to continue to finish my design. So a couple features in the sewing side. Well, we have had all along with the Solaris and Luminaire the projection and the guideline marker. That the guideline marker being also projected on the fabric or the on the machine bed. But in the past, we could either have a projection or the guideline marker. But now we can have both. What the projection allowed me to do was to project the stitch on the fabric so it looks exactly where it is, and then we can use the stylus to move the stitch, change the sizes, and we see exactly how it looks like. But now we can also turn on the guideline marker, so we can have both of these at the same time. So I just have to go again, just to click it on, and then that it shows in the screen that here's my guideline marker. So if I wanted to do a parallel line on that one, so I just want to have these stitches to go right beside it. So it was I can have both of them, and they show both in the fabric. I'm trying to close up on that. It's just that the camera kind of picks up the strobes on that one, but you can sort of vaguely see that there is my feather stitch and the guideline marker beside it. On my Design Center IQ Designer area, some of the changes from the past. I had just picked up one of the built-in designs, one built-in shapes from that shape group. And then I filled the flower, and I turned the outline of this flower, the stitching, so that there's no satin stitches around. So if I go to next to turn this one into the preview screen, in the past around that flower, this design, this would be doing it as a solid outline still. But sometimes you may not want to have that one. I can still turn that one on. So default was that it was turned, originally it was on. If I turn it on, then you're gonna see the difference. So it will have the solid outline around that one, even if I turned my stitching to be no stitch. So if I wanted this not to be a solid outline, I had to turn it off. Now the default is off. I can still turn it on if needed. Where it is really handy is that if you do a whole block and a quilt block that you quilting with the design, and you don't really want to have a straight line or a box going around that one, because maybe your lines were not perfectly straight. At least mine never are perfectly straight, so it would look like stitch in a ditch that were not in the ditch. So I usually always turn that one off. So the feature, the default is now that it's already off. So that was one of the improvements that were made. Let me go back. other ones was that we always have had the capability to zoom up to 800%, which gave us a really good view of the design already. But sometimes when you're working on something very precise, that might not be enough. So now we can zoom up to 1600%. So you can really see a detail on if you need to erase or edit something on this one. I have to find a spot that I can actually see the edge. So I can really easily see if I need to erase or add some features in it. So the magnification was improved also. And then one more great feature, let me take that leaf in there. And I'm gonna use some of those decorative fills. A certain one of these decorative fills, like this one on the number 5. And I'm gonna leave it black. And then I will put that one on this leaf. So when I go to next, takes a little while to digitize. This one default was that those points will go in the way. Let me zoom in a little bit on that one too. Pan in there. So on this one, if I wanted these ones to be mirrored so that these pins would be going out the way, let me go and select that one. Oh, there it was. So we had the mirror function already in the past, but this time instead of mirroring it from the one side, it'll mirror more it in the center. So some of these patterns, it will just look better. So that was just going to show how that would mirror out. So they changed a little bit on the mirror on those decorative stitches. And then one more feature is that we can have the machine automatically tell us that if there's a new free update available. So in that case, where I have the wireless symbol, there would be a little blue exclamation mark showing that there is a new update available. You still have to request it. And there's a separate YouTube video I made about that one, how to use that function. But in order to get that function used, we need to go onto our settings screen and to the last page. We need to turn the auto download on. When it comes from when you download the software, this 2.00 had to be still downloaded from the memory stick. But then afterwards, now when we can turn on automatic ones, we can do the updates wirelessly. And then whenever you have installed it, anytime if you're wondering if there's a new update, it will tell in here that currently my machine is in the latest update. It is 2.05. There's gonna be a new one coming up soon, so that I could install the upgrade kit number 2 also. But you have to turn that one on in order for it to check. If you don't want to have your machine to be checking on automatically, you can leave it off, and then you can always still do the updates manually. Another update feature we had is the auto resume also on my design center. So if I was in the middle of working on my design like I have at the moment, and maybe I had to stop or there was a power failure and my machine went off. In the past, if I had not saved that one, I would have lost my work. But now we have a similar kind of auto resume as we have had all along with the embroidery side. Only difference on this one is that when it wakes up in here, you get the normal, your hoop's gonna move because it detected the embroidery unit. So let it do that one. If I was embroidering and the power went off, you would get on this screen already the question about the you want to auto resume. But then on the design center, it is so that I'll have to go to my design center or IQ Designer in a baby log, and that is when it will ask if you want to recall the previous memory. And then if I say okay, it's there exactly where I left it. So that was a great improvement also.
And then finally for the actual content on this video, the main content, which is about the upgrade kit 1. So this little video is from my brother website. It shows some really shortly some of the features. we have an upgrade. We got both hardware and software features.
And here's some of the features from the new upgrade kit number 1. This was introduced in August 2019. I had made a little sample quilt where I was demonstrating some of these features. This normally hangs in the shop, so I will bring it back there when I finish this video. There is also a manual that you can download from the Brother on Babylock website that tells also the user information about all these upgrade features. Of course, that one is also available in a machine as a PDF file too. But on this one, I'm going to show the features that were added first on the sewing side, and then some of the embroidery features, and then also some of the my Design Center IQ Designer features. On the sewing side, the first one I'm going to talk about is the new hand look quilting stitches, which I had done in the middle of this these satin pieces. There are 3 different ones, so you can just see that the center one has a shorter stitch, and then they have a bit longer, and the one on the left is the widest or the longest possible one. So let me set up in a machine and I show how those work.
Yeah. For this upgrade, we got both hardware and software items in it, so that's why the package was fairly large. So I'm going to go through some of the sewing features that came out. The first one, what I've listed on this one are new stitches. These are new hand look quilting stitches. We have had the hand look quilting stitches really long time on our machines, and those are even available on several smaller machines. But we have now 3 new versions of that one, and I will display the older one and these new ones on a machine shortly.
So I'm at my machine on the sewing screen. On the sewing screen, we have had all along, really long time, and even some of the fairly basic machines, we have had these hand look quilting stitches, which look like a straight stitch and triple stitch, straight stitch, and so on. And it has a letter Q. If I select that one, it tells me it's a hand look quilting stitch. I can select the same one also on the quilting menu, where they're going to have the collection on all the different quilting stitches. And there we have, went past in there, it is a Q04 is the quilting stitch. The only difference between these two is that the default on this one is nil at the center position, when in the tab 1 it is on the left position. But you can always change the nil position. And the instructions really don't tell too much more detail other than when you stitch it, it will look like a little bit heavier stitching because of the triple stitch in the middle of the straight stitches. But I normally put monofilament thread on the top and contrasting color thread in the bobbin for this one. Because that way I can really have it more looking like a hand look quilting stitch. But in order to make this stitch work, I need to tighten the tension. So this is still not part of the upgrade. This is something we have all along had. And I often go as high as 6 or 7. If you go more than that, then you may start getting breakages on the monofilament thread, or then what you may get also is the just a buckling on a fabric. But that I normally tighten the tension. This is how I've been using this stitch in the past. That is still available on this machine, and also lots of the other machines too. But then after that, I will show you the new ones. The new stitches can be found under the S tab. There are some specialty stitches on this one, like a free motion couching stitch, freehand pasting stitch, and here's those 3 new hand look quilting stitches. But I'm going to show first the standard one that we have had all along, so you'll see the difference. Okay, I have threaded the machine with the monofilament thread, and the monofilament threads are sometimes a bit tricky depending on the brand you use. I have on my machine currently the sulky, which is a polyester monofilament. And because of that spool, I find that it works best if it's spinning. So I have a thread director where it spins threaded. That bright thread is not threaded, it's just sitting in there. But the one that I have threaded is the clear monofilament. Also, this is so curly thread that usually my needle threader doesn't work on that, so I have to manually thread it. For the popping, I have a contrasting color thread because that's the one that really will show up for the stitching. And then because if I do quilting, I often use the digital dual feed, and I plug that one in. You can use it as standard shape foot also. And I just a little quilt sandwich pad in between 2 layers of fabric. And the way this stitch works, you go forward and then it does the triple straight stitch forward and triple straight stitch. The first few stitches you may not see any effect yet. Let me show a little bit. So that is how that stitch, I'm going to hide this other one. That is how that stitch that we have all along had. The way this one works is actually tightening the top tension. It does pull the popping thread top side. If your popping thread is really thick, or your padding is very thick and your fabric very dense, you may not see a continuous one. You may see like 2 smaller dots. There's a gap between, because it will pull it from the both sides. My advice for that one would be to put a thinner popping thread, or then other option is put a larger needle so that the needle makes a bigger hole and it allows that space for that popping thread to be pulled up. So I'm going to pick up now one of those new ones. Well, the difference on the new ones and the old one is when I pick up any of those ones, see the tension's already been set to 7. That's the default for these stitches. So on this one, also left position, they put it at the needle position put as a left. You can always move that if you want to have it at the center, which is kind of often what I like to have anyway. So we put it at 3.5. So this time it will show a bit different. This one was forward, forward, backward, forward, and then forward. This one, it continues, keeps going forward, but we'll have one longer stitch that will be the monofilament thread showing on the top, and then we have a series of tiny stitches. Yeah, that's tiny stitches, and then it has the longer stitch. Those tiny stitches with the tighter tension, that will also pull up the thread a bit there. So what it does, it will pull up with that tighter tension the popping thread. See, the popping thread is underneath. So the older one, you can see the stitch looks a bit different. On the newer ones, the stitch will just look more like a solid line. And I have very thin popping thread at the moment. Let me pick up on the one that is the longest one. I didn't move my needle position, but I think it doesn't matter. You can see how it pulls up on a longer stitch between, and then tiny stitches when it pulls the popping thread out. And here's the one, that longer version. So all of these ones already have automatically set the needle, the top tension, needle tension to 7.
But then other really nice feature is that we can change the guideline marker to be a line, like used to be the laser line, or we can have it to display as a dot. That is selected just right on there on that guideline marker. We can have the shape, either the line that is the default and the dot. Dot is a great one we do free motion quilting, because then you can see exactly where your needle would be going when you start stitching.
Another addition for the guideline marker, I turn this one on again, so I could have it as a straight line, which we have had all along. Or then we have the option now for the shape, if I put a little dot. So this time, instead of having the line on that one, all we have a little dot. It's a great for free motion quilting because it shows exactly where my needle position would be. So I just selected a straight stitch, and then Let me turn the projection on. I don't really need the projection for the free motion quilting. And then all I would see is the little dot.
Upgrade included a couple different guides. And there's one guide for the couching in the sewing machine side and another guide for the couching with the embroidery side. So this is the feature that it was already available for the Brother Dream Machine and the Baby Lock Destiny. And it could be added for some of the V-Series machines also. The machines that have the digital dual feed, the large walking foot, there is a sole that has a hole on it. So this upgrade kit includes this sole and the guide. And I will again show that in the machine. So that is another function that other piece of hardware and the function that came with this upgrade. And we can use a zigzag or some other kind of stitching, decorative stitches to couch yarns in the sewing machine side. To put that guide on, we have on the top of the machine, when you open the lid, there are a couple little holes. So the first one towards the front of it, that is where the knob of that guide, the yarn guide, goes in. So it just sits nicely on the side, left side of the machine. And then we need to use the antenna, this thread antenna, to thread the yarn, and we can get it on the top on the antenna, then hook onto the guide on the two places. And it is good to, especially spool like this one that they have in a picture, to unwind some of it, because that would just get caught. We need to have the yarn coming out smoothly. And then we will take that thread from the last guide through the hole. There's a little wire loop that comes with the upgrade kit also, and that helps to get the wire through that, or the yarn through that hole. And then all we have to do is just to do a zigzag or some decorative stitching, guide the fabric. The foot keeps the cord right in place.
And here's an example of the couched yarn using the walking foot. I use the zigzag stitch and the variegated embroidery thread on this one. And the yarn I use is the only knitting yarn. Quite some time ago, I had done with my Dream Machine that had the same kind of a function. I had embellished this panel. This was just an old batik panel that I turned into a bag. And anyway, you can see there's a yarn, and then I have used some decorative stitches to do the couching. So kind of straight lines were great, but even some slight curves, they were great for embellishing. Some areas you see the couching. This one has been done with the free motion couching foot, which is totally different. Next, I'm going to demonstrate the couching function. The upgrade kit came with some hardware pieces. There were two yarn guides. One had a little bit shorter one and one a longer one. The longer one also has a letters EC. That is for the embroidery couching. Not going to use that yet. This one is the one that is going to be used with the sewing side. And then there is a sole for the machine, the walking foot, the dual feed. It has a hole for the yarn. So I will take the standard sole out, and then I can snap the new one. I have to keep my hands away, and I not really lined up. There we go. So now I've got that snapped on. And then other things that came with the little yarn tool that we can use for the little threading tool. Mine is still neatly in the packet because that is so hard for me to find if I drop it. So I often use those little dental floss, little blue plastic ones. But that is the that works the same way. Mine is just like neatly in the back. So this yarn guide, we will go on the indentation. We have a couple little indentations on the top of the machine, and there is a notch pump on this one. I'll just put the pump on, and that will hold the guide in place. And then we need to use the two-spool thread stand. So I have my thread stand in there, and I'm gonna still leave my monofilament thread. Again, I could use the decorative one too. If I use the decorative, I would want to have that one on the right hand side and the yarn on the left hand side. But then if I use the monofilament, you barely see those stitches. So I'll put my spool, and then I will get the yarn. And it is good idea to have it a little bit excess and pulling up there so that the yarn can come freely. And then I will connect it onto these two notches, so that way the yarn will get guided. And then I need to get it through the opening. I could use the metal wire that came with it, or I often use these little dental flosses, because if I drop these ones, I can see them better. And let me get the piece of paper I'm gonna put underneath, because if I push this one through, it's gonna try to go under the stitch plate. But if I have a piece of paper or fabric under, that way it will bend that cord, and I can get it through the hole. And you want to have about 4 inches length on the get started. As for stitches, the manual tells to use a zigzag stitch number 110. However, you can use some of the other decorative stitches, as long as they are not stitches that go too much back and forth. Obviously, when we have a digital dual feed, the machine only lets you do the stitches that are available for that foot. All I have to do is just to make sure that my yarn is not gonna be caught on anything, that it can come freely. But otherwise, then when sewing, I can just guide the fabric. I can go straight lines, so I can do even a little curvy lines, not having too loose in there. So I can easily do slight curves, and if I turn on my pivoting function, then I can do it then right hand or left hand side corners too. It's a great way to embellish. So depending on the thread you have in the needle and what yarn you use, I will make a different look on it. Only thing on the yarn is that you need to make sure it doesn't have, it's not too heavy obviously, but also that doesn't have big lumps on it. The yarn has to be able to go through that opening.
And then some of the great new features on the embroidery side. Well, one of the big reasons why the upgrade kit box is so large is because it contains this really large, nice square hoop. This is a 272 by 272 millimeter, which is approximately 10 by 5/8 inches square frame. And it has that latch release connectors, so it makes it really nice for quilt blocks, because then you don't have to always adjust the screw. And then we got 75 new designs that we have on the embroidery side now built in the machine. 5 of those designs were made specifically for this large hoop.
Well, we had some additions in the embroidery side also. And some of the things you might already see on the main menu. We have some new stitches, new patterns under a new tab. I'll come back that later. But let me first go on the first tab, where we have different groups. We have had already all these different groups of stitches on embroidery patterns. But now we have one more group. And let me just open up the screen. So there are 50 new patterns, and 5 of those patterns are really, really large. They are approximately 10 by 10. This one on the number 4, this one I have embroidered, so I will show that on my quilt. But these are very pretty designs, but I said 4 of them were specially made for the hoop that is part of the upgrade. And here it is. Here's the new hoop. And it has that really nice quick connection, and that's the design that I had embroidered using this large hoop.
And then I mentioned already that we had couching for the sewing machine, but yes, we do have couching for embroidery machine too. There are 40 new couching patterns that were added into the embroidery side of the machine. And there's another kind of a guide, another yarn guide. It's a bit different shape. And how you can tell this when to use which one is that this one says EC. It's been printed or stamped on the top of that guide. It says EC. That's for the embroidery couching. The other one, the little bit more curly one, that was used for the with the walking foot couching. But the similar way, we're going to thread the yarn on these guides and then through the eye of that the foot. So we got a new foot with this upgrade kit also. But before we start stitching, we most likely will have to adjust the foot. At least I had to do on mine. We need to make sure that the needle will go on that left side of the foot opening. So circle opening on the foot, but we need to have the needle be positioned on that one. We don't move the needle position, we will move just the foot. And that's why there is a little adjustment screw on the side that we can adjust so that the needle will move onto that position. Because the yarn comes on the left side, so we need to have the needle on that side to catch the yarn. And I will demo that one in the machine too.
Well, we had couching for the sewing machine side using the digital dual feed, but we also have couching for embroidery side. There are also 40 new couching designs that come with it. On this little block, I had used 2 of those designs. Some of the ones are multicolor, like this one had 2 color stops, and then this was half a frame, which I then mirror image and copied on other one. So those ones are all couched with the embroidery side. And there's always pieces of thread. New couching patterns can be found under the C group, C for couching. So they're fairly simple looking design because we can't have them too complicated for the yarn to really follow. And they had to have continuous patterns so that we can't have then jump stitches. So many really pretty designs. Except this is the one that I had used for the 2 color, and then I had used this one and just a mirror image and copied it for to put the frame around. So that way you can make your own, just combining these ones. For the demonstration, I'm gonna pick up just the really small one, doesn't take that many stitches. And when I look this design, if I zoom in a little bit, it just looks like little arrows. And yes, you could use these designs as just a little individual designs. And I did embroider some of these ones. That is how that design would look if I don't put any yarn. So definitely you could use these designs as they are. But then I did that same design using different kinds of yarn. This one is just ordinary knitting yarn. And then these tails, I would take a large darning needle or awl to push the hole and pull this inside and tie them in. Then I use kind of a metallic thread on this one. So I was playing with the different threads to see how they would look like. And on this one, I had used then a kind of it's more like a nylon canvas, one of those plastic canvas yarns. Just want to try different ones. And if you wondered how that butterfly would look like, there it is. That took a little bit longer time to sew, but it is very pretty. For this, in order to use this couching function, what we need to have is then the couching foot and the other guide. Okay, after I put this embroidered couching foot, the test I need to do is that make sure that the needle is towards the left side of the foot. It has a tiny little opening, but there is the needle we need to have right not in the middle, but kind of on the left half of it. And how I do that one, I'll just lower the needle down so I can see that it's going towards that left side. If I need to adjust that one, there's a screw on the side that I could take my screwdriver and just to rotate that one. You see the foot just moves. The needle won't move, the foot moves. So I want to make sure that I'm on the left side, but not so that I'm hitting or rubbing on with the needle on the opening in the foot. I have my ball of yarn on the thread stand and hooked it up on the handle on there and the stand. And then I have some loose thread, not loose yarn on the lid. And then the thread goes through the thread guides, both of those ones. And then finally we will get it caught on that little hook, or that is part of the foot. And then I'm gonna use either the wire that comes with the upgrade, or that my dental floss, which I think it shows a bit easier in the camera, just to get the yarn through the hole. I've set the design, and one thing about these designs are that they have special settings. automatically the machine speed is being dropped to 350 stitches a minute. So we're not gonna be going up to 1,000 stitches like we can do with the normal embroidery. These ones, they won't take that long to sew anyway. This small design has only 648 stitches, and machine tells me that on the slowest speed it takes 2 minutes to embroider this one. So I'm going to just hold on the tail a bit so that I can keep it out of the way. And I will lower my pressure foot. And it will tack it down and start stitching. We'll make that little kind of a arrowhead looking pattern, and we'll tack down the yarn. All I'm watching on the thought that this yarn has enough looseness that nothing catches it on it. And I'm using currently the monofilament thread, but obviously I could use embroidery thread, either matching or contrasting color. Depending on the thread or the yarn you use, if it's a soft yarn, the top thread sort of just disappears it in any way. And then in the end, I will take just the darning needle and pull those thread tails inside underneath. And embroidery is finished, so I will just take a tail, cut the threads, and then I will bring those the yarn tails underneath.
Some more software related or the embroidery related items what we have. Enhanced character editing. We can now select multiple characters to do editing, meaning if I want to change the fonts or the size of the multiple characters at the same time, I can do that one rather than just one character at a time. We had a really great text editor already, but now it's been enhanced.
One more update feature that we have is up on the letter editing. We have already a lot of letter editing, but there was a little enhancement. I just typed in here upgrade kit number 1 as a multi-line text. I used the number 1 font on the, and just really didn't pick up any special font, just use that one, use some upper scale and some lower scale lettering, and then finally I used also the numbers in that one. And to get the second line, I just hit the return key. So what we have had already all along, we have had capability to change the size, the array, if I want to have the smile or frown. We could have change the spacing on the letters, and then if you want to have it left, right, or center justified. Those were things we've had all along, plus the capability of changing the font. So because sometimes some letters just don't look as good on certain fonts, so I don't need to worry about before. I can just pick up the font. I often use the very first one, enter the letters, and then I audition the fonts I'd like to use. So if I pick up on the font pattern, I could see that, oh, like this font is too big for this one. I would have to reduce the size a bit, but I could use this one on the different kinds of fonts on that one. So I can easily audition. Well, I was using, I only got the bottom part of it, but I can move my arrows on this one. I can still edit in case I need to change something on the text. And then I can go on to the top line, and then I could again, that's too big font, but that's a bit smaller font, that would fit. So I can still kind of do line by line on changing the entire row of the font. But then if I want to just change one letter, this is again capability we had on original Solaris and Luminaire. I touched a single letter. So now where my box is a red line and dotted box, so that'll be the letter I'd be changing. So if I move that one, I can either click on the letter itself, or I can use these arrow keys. So if I want to change the font on that, I can just do that one at a time. That's something we had before. But then if I wanted to have this, the font on the first word that I have to be the same one, I'd have to do it again that separately, and then I had to remember which was the font I now used, because some of them are kind of close and how to tell which one it was. Well, this is where the new update thing came in, that we can select multiple ones. I would have to set this one, and then I'm gonna touch the edit button, and here is my text edit. Well, I can't go to the text edit at the moment because I have multi-line text and it is cropped. So I will need to ungroup it first. And then just to select one of those lines. I could either use the arrow keys or then just the selection. So now I have my text editor. So I can still now have all, except now I can't do the justification. But on this one, now if I wanted to go and do the editing, here's a new button. So I have capability of selecting not just the entire word or then on a single letter, I can then select multiples. Well, I don't want the T anymore, but I'd like to have these two to be the same font. Then I can just go and pick up. I'm gonna do something really fancy on that one. So that is the way I can select multiples at the same time. And maybe I didn't like this font at all. Then I could just undo those ones, and I can select all of these letters. Because I could have changed the entire word and then just change two, but again I could have different ones, and maybe I'd use that font. So kind of looks a bit weird, but this is, I can change individual letters, selecting multiples at the same time. To access for the second one, yeah, I'd have to go back and then select that one, go to the text, and then I can do the same kind of changes on this. Of course, I only have two letters, so not too much there to change.
And then other really great feature, we can have the pressure foot automatically lower in the embroidery side, but we need to turn this feature on. As a default, that is turned off. So going on the settings, we just instead of having it off, we turn it on. And after that one, we don't have to anymore lower the pressure foot before you start the embroidery. All you have to do is hit the start button, and the pressure foot will go down, and you can start embroidering. Then color visualizer or color shuffling, maybe calls it a visualizer, brother calls it shuffling. This is when we can take a design and have the machine suggest us some color combinations for that one. And this fix we have had available all the way from Elissimos and Quattros, but now we also have on this one available that we can have the save up to 9 favorites, so that if you are looking for the possible ones, and then sometimes if you keep just having the refresh and refresh, you forget the ones you liked. So that way you can set them as a favorite and then go back to see which one you really want to embroider.
The next upgrade feature I'm going to demonstrate is the capability of adding favorites using the color shuffling or color visualizer. I picked up one of the designs from those new 50 designs that came with the upgrade. This is one of those larger ones that were made for the new large hoop. So on things that we have had, the features already since Quattro and Elissimo, is on the color palette. I could manually always change colors, but we have a color shuffling. Babylock calls it color visualizer, brother calls it color shuffling. What this allows us to do is to have the sewing machine to suggest some color possibilities for this design. If I don't like any of these, how the design came from the designer, I can pick up either random, vivid, gradient, or soft. That is something we've had already for quite some time. So I'm going to just leave it as a random, and I'm not even going to pin colors. I'm just going to call that entire color palette. So what happens is that I will get 9 different options, suggestion what colorations would be nice. And if I click the refresh, I get another 9. So I can keep going, and then if I see something that I like some of the ones look kind of odd, but here's one that I kind of like that one, but I'm not totally sure. So I can mark it as my favorite. There's a little heart. When I click it, it turns pink. So I said, that's possibility. I may like that one. Let's see if I click the refresh some more. And then I get another 9. And I thought, that looks pretty nice. I'll pick that one too. Let's try one more time. Nah, I don't think I like any of those, but I think there was one on the first group. So I can go back in here and still scroll the ones that I had done in what the software had suggested me the first. And I kind of like that one. And I can have a closer look. I said, yep, that looks pretty nice. So I will mark this as a favorite also. So now I put a few favorites on my list. And to access that, I will touch the favorites. So now I can see those ones that I marked, and I can see, yeah, I don't know if I really like this one now after all. So I can remove it from my favorites list. I can click it and have a closer look, and I thought, that is kind of nice. Or I can check the next one and then scroll around, but I maybe like this one. So now I have this design and has been set for me, ready to embroider with those colorations.
Some more embroidery features. We have the enhanced quilting border function. Used to have that one already in the original Solaris and Luminaire machines, but this one has now much different way to do the this border function. Also, we can have a much larger border. Now we can go up to 300 by 300 centimeters, which is about 818 inches a square quilt. The earlier version, it was only doing it on up to 4 hoopings, which that is still available. That was much limited, much smaller areas. But this one is really nice because we can do really large ones. And with that upgrade, we also got 5 new border designs. We still had those same 10 what we had before, but we added another 5.
Well, I measured the area I want to have the quilting on my border to go. So even with if my sassing or border in here is about 2¼ inches, I may not want to have my quilting to go all the way. So I left a 1/4 inch border and 1/4 inch here for the binding. So my width for my border in this case would be 1 3/4 inches. And then I also measured the width and the height on the area that I want the design to go, which is just from the area where I want my stitching to start to the bottom where I want my stitching to end. So that will give me 13.5 inches. So those will be the measurements I will enter on my machine for my border design. I've hooked my quilt sandwich. This time I'm using the largest hoop, and I had to move my table a little bit away from the wall because this large hoop would otherwise hit the wall. So I'm gonna go onto the screen. So I'm at the home page. So I will go to the embroidery site this time, because the machine we have on the Solaris and Luminaire, we have built-in border stitches. When I click this one, I see total of 15 because I have the upgrade, so I have extra ones in here also. I have set my machine at the moment for millimeters. So I'm gonna go to settings and change it to inches because I had measured my border in inches, so I need to enter the measurements in inches. So I was gonna use this design number 4, but I have 15 to choose from. I will use this one and set it. I have 2 options. I could do it in quarters, or with the upgrade I also got this new way to do, so I'm gonna use this one. No matter which option I select, I will need to enter the width of my quilt, my height of the quilt, and the sassing or border size. Well, the width really means it's the area you want to embroider. So I had decided that this is the one I need to have 13.5. Even though my border was 14, I needed to leave 1/4 inch on the edges for the binding. So I will enter this and set it. And the same for the width. Again, 13.5 and set. And then for the sassing side, because I also wanted to leave about 1/4 inch from the border or where the stitching is, so that ended up being 1.75. Those were my earlier measurements. This shows in here the range, how big quilt I can do, quilt, and how big borders and the sizes I can do. I can select here also what hoop I'm using. I'm using the largest one this time, so I leave it as a default, but I could have used some of the other hoop sizes also. So when I'm all happy with that one, oops, I just didn't set that one. Here we go. All set, all the measurements. I will hit next. And it will tell me that this is how the design is going to be split, the total area. And then tells me that there are total 8 pieces. It does not necessarily mean 8 hoopings. It's just 8 sections. Because I'm using the largest hoops, I don't even have to hoop between them. So this time all I can do is save it in the memory, and it is saved in the machine's memory. And here you see some of the things I've saved on my memory on my machine. So I will select the one that I just saved. And it will show that these are the pieces that will be used. The corner piece 4 times, this section 2 times, and this section 2 times. So I will select the first item. That's it. That will set this design on my embroidery screen, and it will tell me exactly what to do. This is important that I follow the guidelines exactly. So whatever it tells me, I need to do this. So it'll tell me begin sewing from the upper right corner and attach the embroidery frame in the initial sewing position. So that is how I have hooped my quilt sandwich. I will click OK. And it will tell me that this is how I need to set my corner of my design where I want my border to go. On this example, they show the pattern to fill the entire area. Well, I'm going to use this point, the 1/4 inch that I marked on my fabric. So I will touch OK. And the machine moved a bit and little projection turns on. So I will move the camera so it will project that design. Oops, there we go. Onto the quilt sandwich. So I will just touch my finger on the screen, and I'm gonna move it sort of on the area I want the design to go. And it is really hard to kind of see on the camera on this design, but what I'm looking is this area where I will want to have that corner to go. This is where I marked it. So I will line it up on that corner. If I go back on the screen, sorry about moving the camera, it will show that that is the point that I'm reflecting at the moment in the machine. So I can use my finger to move around, or I can use these little arrow keys to move it to the design so that I'll have that corner exactly on that spot. So I'm gonna slide it a little bit, kind of roughly there, and then I can move it. I'm gonna pause a bit so I can see better, and then I'll get back onto the recording. Well, I've got now my needle lined up as close as I can see where I want to have that corner design to go. So this time I'm gonna touch OK on the screen. That's OK. And then I'm ready to embroider. So my machine is already showing to be ready to embroider. My green light is on. So I will embroider this first design. And whenever it's finished, the machine will tell me then to connect the next one. My machine has finished the first design, and I got it pretty much where I want it. So I'm gonna go on the screen again, and it's telling me, actually asking me, do I want to connect to the next one? And I say, well, sure, I want you to do that for me. So that's OK. And it will automatically pick up the next pattern. And then it tells that I need to just rotate it, just in case I didn't get everything hooked perfectly straight. That's a cool thing. I don't have to hook things straight even. Again, I need to really see what it's telling me, and before I touch OK. Reason I only had to fix the angle on this first one is that because the next section fits onto this same hooping. So the machine already knows where it made the previous design finished. So I will touch OK. And the design shows at the moment where it would be. Again, it will show that the corner that my needle is pointing at the moment is on this corner. But the design doesn't go all the way there. It really is the corner of that my quilt, where I wanted my quilting to go. So let's see on the machine. And that is where my needle is pointing. Again, if I didn't have it hooked perfectly, I could move it a little bit. I may want to rotate it just ever so slightly. So I would have it just touching a little rotation arrow. So I will get my needle to be right there because I did not hook it perfectly straight. I just sort of eyeballed it. I think that's pretty good. If I put my needle down, I can see pretty much, maybe just another little notch. Put the needle up. And let's see the other point. It will show, yep, that's where it would start. We go back onto that corner. So I will just move it maybe one couple little notches. I was quite crooked in my hooping. So what I was touching, I was just touching this 0.1 degree. So I was just shifting the design a little bit. And then it's still showing on this point. I may want to just to check, just to see how would my design look on the fabric when I put my needle on this point. So it will show it on my fabric. I'm not barely seeing in the camera, but I can see on my fabric that I'm about 1/4 inch from that edge and pretty much 1/4 inch from my edge also. So I think I'm pretty good lined up. So I'm gonna touch. Okay, going back in the camera on the screen. I'm gonna touch OK. And it is ready to embroider. At the moment the needle's there, so I'm gonna just to touch +1, so my needle goes on to the starting point, so I can use my needle up and down to pull my popping thread up, so that the other side will look pretty cute too. Now again, I'm gonna pause it a bit, and I'll have my machine embroider this. Well, the second part of the embroidery is finished, and it lined up very well. I'm pretty pleased so far. Again, my machine just is asking now, do I want to continue? And I think she's doing just a good job. I say, go ahead, let's get the next piece. And we'll pick up the next corner piece. And now it tells you one side was sewn. Well, yeah, this was a very small piece. So we only had 2 sections. But this time we will need to rotate the hoop to do the next side. As it tells in here, turn the hoop 90 degrees counterclockwise and then re-hoop it, the same as how the picture shows. And then after I'm done that one, I'll touch OK, line up my next design and embroider the corner, do the next side. So I just keep going on this way the next 3 sides, and then I can show how we do the end connection. Okay, I have re-hooped and that's OK. So now my machine tells me to connect at the start of this next corner onto the ending on the previous. So that is the point I'll be looking. So I'll touch OK, and needle goes on that position. So because it puts as the default the design in the middle, I will need to move it towards the corner that I want to have my design to go. And I'm gonna roughly do with my finger, too far, and then I'll use these arrow keys to line it up exactly. So I'm looking for this point on my needle, so I would be looking on that point of the design. So I will need to move it quite a bit further up because I'm not at the right spot, but I'm gonna be aligning again. It's easier when I'm not holding the camera, and then I'll come back. Okay, I got the design lined up. I put my needle down even to double check. I think I'm good to go. So let me just touch my needle up and down to get my needle up, and then I'll touch OK on the screen. So now my machine tells me that I need to line up my corner. So I'll touch OK. And that is where the corner has been set up. So just in case if I didn't again hoop perfectly straight, I have an opportunity to use the angle, and I may move it just a little bit in, and so that I'll get it more where my miter line is. Just move it just a little bit, because first what I did, I just set up the starting point, and I'm setting the angle. So again, I will turn off the camera a little while so I can see a little bit closer, and then I will embroider this design. I'm now at my last a section of the design. So I had lined up the top part, and now the machine's asking me to line up the ending of this section to the start of the first section. So I need to, so that's okay. And the needle's gonna go onto that ending point. And I can adjust it in here on an angle, but I can also squash it or stretch it a little bit, because sometimes when you quilt the design, your fabric shrinks a little bit, and even if your measurements were perfect to start with, they may be just a tiny bit off, but it doesn't matter because this is where we can fix it. So I'm trying to zoom in on the area, and I left my thread tails when I started, so let me see, there my thread tails. So if I put my needle down, looks like I'm just a little bit off, so I need to fix that one. So I will lift my needle up and I will rotate it just ever so slightly, maybe a couple notches, and I will also squash it just a little bit, except because it was quilted and my measurements and my quilt might be not exactly, but now I can have my start and the ending on this design to line up exactly where the starting on the first design was. So I'm gonna go ahead and lift my needle up, and then I can even double check that everything looks okay. Everything lines up good there, so I'm gonna touch OK, go for the first stitch, so I can pull my bobbin thread up, and I will finish this last section. So I still left all my thread tails from the starts and starting, so we can see how well I lined up. I will bury those inside the quilt. Well, my border has been finished, and I'm using the self-threading spiral eye needles, and I will be then using that needle to get these thread tails all pulled inside the quilt. But I left the tails, you see that where the start and end was, so really good lineup. And that was the very beginning. Here's the one that I started the stitching, and that's where I finished it. I think we got it lined up really good. So the machine is just amazing how it can do that.
Then this is another cool feature. I guess there's so many cool features, but this one allows us to kind of connect the machine with the monitoring app. So in case if you have a baby lock machine, then you will go on the app store to get the IQ monitoring app. If you have the Brother machine, that's when you would go to then the Brother My Stitch Monitor. So you just have to have the right type for your machine. Load that app on your smart device, and then when you have your sewing machine, embroidery machine at the same wireless network, you can turn on the app and it will check on if there are any color changes needed, thread breakages, or when the embroidery is finished. So that way you can walk away from the machine, and you'll get the notifications if when the machine needs any attention.
I'm going to demonstrate how to use the My Stitch Monitor app. And on this one, I need to first set it up on my smart device. So I would have to go on an app store and download the app. So if you have a Brother machine, then you would take the My Stitch Monitor. If you have a Baby Lock, then will be the IQ Intuition Monitoring. So just to make sure you have the right brand, and those you can go App Store, and they are both for Mac and Android devices. Other important thing is that we are on the wireless, that we will be on the same network, so that my machine is connected to wireless, and my smart device is in the same wireless. And then I can then I will the machine shows up my machine, a sewing machine. I can change the name if I don't want it to call sewing machine. I could give it a name. I'm being kind of boring and I never change the name on mine. But you need to get make sure that whatever you have, if you have multiple machines in the same wireless, that you are then monitoring, connecting to the same one. So I have this all set, but there's also an app guide. So if you have trouble finding that from the App Store, you could always just use your QR reader on your smart device. If you have an Android, just scan that one, it will take you the right app monitor. So there's a pretty good app guide built in right on there too. I picked a really small design, something that has a fairly short color run. So we can see in an app when I'm embroidering that when I get the notification that I need to change threads, or in case the thread breaks or runs out of bobbin thread, or then when the embroidery is finished, I will get notifications. Here I'm on my phone, and I have downloaded, there are multiple apps that I have my Stitch Monitor and my Design Snap. That one is used with the Stellaire machines at the moment, but with the upgrade 2, if you get the upgrade 2 for the Luminaire, then that will be also used for the taking an image and send it to my design center. And the same apps in here are for the baby lock. So I'm gonna select my Stitch Monitor, my Stitch Monitor app, and it is connecting, and it found my sewing machine. Like I said, I just called mine sewing machine, nothing special. If you have trouble and you need some help, there is online help also. You could touch the connection guidance. But mine it finds it pretty quick, as long as my smart device and my sewing machine is at the same network. So this one now just shows that it is monitoring, shows the design that I have it on a screen, and it is says it's ready. So I'm gonna just hit start, and we should start seeing that when it is now embroidering. So you kind of see in here telling that it's now embroidering. And then whenever if there's anything that the machine needs attention, we will get an alarm. So this design is only about this first color run is just about a minute, so that should get pretty quick, and we will get the notification. Okay, and now we got the notice that I'm waiting for thread change. So I can go ahead and then change my threads on the machine, start embroidering, and it will show that that is how much it has done my design. If I wanted to have more information, I can touch to see the stitch count, where I'm at the moment, and then also how many stitches the total design is. I can also see that was total 3 colors. I'm now the second color. I can even list all the threads that are needed. Or I can go to monitoring. So very much the same information that we have on the screen, other than we can't move the design and do all the editing, but we can see what the machine's doing. So if I now go and change the threads, hit start, and now it's starting to then again embroidering, it's monitoring for the next one.
And then some features on the My Design Center IQ Designer area. We have had many fills already. There was 30 fills to start with, but now we have 6 more fills, 6 more decorative fills. And then in addition for those fills, we can also now have them to have it either just like light fill or more dense fill, meaning that the default in the past was that each one of those fills were stitched 2 to 3 passes. Now we can have them to go either just 1 to 2. And that capability is now all of those 36 fills. So that is just the thing that we can specify when we are finalizing the fills in the IQ Designer My Design Center.
Then on the fills, I'm gonna just add a fill pattern, one of these decorative stitches, and we got 6 new fills. So they will be the 31 through 36. So let me get that little, well, maybe I'll get that design there. And I can leave it red, put it in a pocket and apply there. So what this new fill stitches, what I can do is I can have them showing either kind of multiple denser stitching, or I can have them have lighter fill. So I'm gonna touch next. And let's zoom in a little bit there too. No, this area was very small. Sometimes my mouse doesn't always get exactly, so I'll use the pan and there. So this fill inside, we have had all along the capability to make it smaller or larger. This hasn't changed. That's the same as from already from the Dream Machine and Destiny. So I'm just gonna make it a bit smaller for the small area. Or I could have the angle change, and then if we want to have the outline stitch on or off. That was a part of the update that we already have the default now to be off. So there is not gonna be a solid outline stitching on the fill unless we want to change it. And then with the LuminaireSolaris, originally we also got the random shift, and then also the center point, we can move it. But here's the new button. This one allows us to change the density. So the default is that this design would be stitched on 3 to 4 times. Depending on where it goes, it could be 3 times over or 4 times. This will only go 1 to 2 times, so it's a lighter fill. Really handy if you are using maybe a little bit heavier thread, like maybe 40 weight quilting thread or even 12 weight, so that the stitching wouldn't be so dense. Yes, sometimes it still will be double because it is still continuous stitching, and it will have some back stitching on the decorative. But that is the new function, so it will remove some of the stitches. And I saw it on a quilt that I had done in both ways. And here are those 6 new fills, just embroidered in a smaller areas. And on this one, if I zoom a little bit closer, that was the default when those stitches were going over 3 to 4 times. That is the same design, but this time I have changed the fill to be 1 to 2 times, so it's a much lighter fill. And there's another thread tail. Don't know where they come, but that just shows the difference between same design, just a different level of fill.
Then 3 new ways to make a selection on my design center IQ Designer. We had in the past that we could draw a box, or we could make a little kind of a selection key on it, more kind of straight line selection. But then we have now 3 more options. One is that we can have just a freehand, so I can just draw around the area that I want to select and work on, or I can select everything, or I can just use like a pen just to select that the area that is connected, and then that will select it. So we have 3 more ways to select items on IQ Designer, my design center.
And some features, the additions for the My Design Center IQ Designer, the digitizer part of the machine. I picked up again just the same shape from the shapes menu. And some of the options we have, it's just anytime I want to edit the design, I need to have it selected, meaning that there's a box around it. We have had in the past a couple ways to select it. So if I click somewhere else, and now it's no longer selected. But I had options in the past that I could just draw a box. That was our default option, which means I would just hold down my mouse this case, so my stylus on the screen or finger on the screen, draw a box, and when I release it, that gets selected everything inside the box. Other option that we had in the past was that we could pick up just certain areas. It's a little bit easier than sometimes to get, like maybe I would only want to have that little flower bud. So instead of me drawing a box, at least if I go back on that original box, if I draw a box on that one, I may easily get some other pieces there too. But this function allows me to go and just to select the points. And I will zoom in a little bit. That is where some of the zoom functions really is nice. So now I can go and just click points around this one. And I can go really just between those, and then I select it again. So now I only selected that little flower bud. Those are the functions we've had all along with the Solaris and Luminaire. But then we have now a new function. One of the new selection functions would be a freehand. So let me zoom out a little bit. Maybe I'd like to have the leaves and then just this part. So now I can go, just to move it more in the center. So I can draw just a freehand line, and I'm using the mouse, but you could use your finger or your stylus on the screen also. And I can just draw a freehand line. So anything that I have inside my box is now selected. So if I wanted this one to be taken out, I can just remove, pull it out. Now I caught a little bit of stem too, but that will be easy to delete. Just put it back there. Then 2 more new options. A really easy way for me to pick up just one item, one component. So maybe I'd like to have that lots of flower in the top. So if I select the one that looks like a stylus or pen, and now all I had to do is just touch that when it's selected. Or then I could have selected everything on the screen. So the last option would be to select this one, and now it selects every component. So those 3 were the new items we have.
And of course, then because we had all these great new features, there are lots of new help and video content added also. And then, of course, then there's the Kit 1 instruction and reference guide, a PDF file that has been added under the help menu. Then you can always download that PDF file from the website also.